Okay, so I'm just getting ready to role play my listing presentation, just on my own here. So I thought I'd start with an overview of the materials that I use. So I have my leather-bound notebook, the nice golden pen, and of course my iPad, and a hard copy of the listing presentation. Now, depending on the layout, I'll usually sit at the kitchen table across from the prospect or prospects, and I will have the presentation materials on the screen. But depending on the length of the table, if I'm a little bit far away and it's hard for them to see, or if they're straining their eyes, I also like to have a hard copy that they can follow along with in front of them. And it depends on the situation. I just had one recently where I was doing the presentation for an elderly woman and her daughter, and because the layout at the kitchen table wasn't working for me, I decided to just move over to the sofa in the living room, and I sat in the middle and they sat on either side, and we just kind of did it that way. So depending on the layout, I'll improvise, but for the most part this is how I do it. So I have, just to give you a quick review here, I have the basic listing presentation here, 5 or 6 basic pages. And then I have, flip it around here, and I have some stats for our days on market. And then I have some charts and graphs here depicting the effects of overpricing and so on. And then I have a section here on my guarantee, information on preparing the property for sale, checklists, or some information about the company. And then I also have here a package that comes out that, if people want to get a little bit more further information on the online marketing campaigns that I do, it's all in there. And then I also have some stuff from my old Royal LePage days there as well. And then finally some examples of some of the print advertising that I do. Just to be better. Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to start by thanking you for giving me the opportunity to come over and talk to you about getting your home listed with us. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to do 3 things. I'd like to start by reviewing the information that I gathered in our conversation on the phone yesterday. And then I'd like to do a walk through the home, and I'd like to have you accompany me and we inspect the property together. And then I'd like to return to the kitchen table and go over 3 things. Firstly, an overview of the techniques that we use to sell homes at 2% Realty, as well as the marketing plans that we customize for our individual clients. And then secondly, I want to talk about pricing and market conditions, as well as the steps that need to be taken to prepare a property to put it on the market. And then thirdly, I want to take the time to answer any questions you may want to ask me. Okay? Fair enough? Okay, so let's get started here. So, in our conversation on the phone yesterday, you told me that you've lived in the home for 4 years now. Okay? And that you bought it as new construction from the developer. Is that correct? Okay, very good. And so your plans are that you've got a new job with a tech company down in the Lower Mainland, and that you're relocating there, and that your new job starts in 6 months, I believe. You said that's correct? Okay. And you also told me that you'll need the funds from the sale of this property here to finance your next purchase. Is that right? Okay, very good, very good. And that you also have a small portable mortgage that'll transfer over. Okay, excellent. And I believe you were telling me also that you had talked to a realtor down there, but you hadn't really formed a business relationship with anyone down there, but that you would require a realtor to help you out down there. Well, in that case, I will go through some more information. I'll provide you with some more information about that, and as we have an extensive referral network, and I can tell you a little bit more about how I can refer you to one of our agents down there so that we can coordinate our efforts so that we can get your place sold up here and get you moved into your new home down there as effortlessly as possible. Okay? So, okay, very good. So now that I've reviewed the information that we discussed on the phone, why don't we take a look at the property? Okay? Let's go. Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that this is a beautiful home, and I think we're going to have no problem selling it. So that's the good news. Okay, so just to begin with, I'd like you to just open up the binder here to the first page, and just so that you can follow along with me there. And I'll have it up on the screen here as well. Okay. So I want to start with talking about marketing, because this is obviously such an important aspect of what we do as realtors. And as you can see here and on the screen, we offer a very impressive package of internet marketing. And that includes, of course, we're a member of the Multiple Listing Service, and we also advertise our properties on Realtor.ca, as well as our own 2% Realty website. And we also have a very robust social media advertising program, which is really important in this day and age. Particularly in the last 5 years, that's been the main area of focus for marketing homes in real estate. And we have all the bases covered with that, with Facebook advertising, and a little later on I'll show you some examples of some of the kinds of advertising I do on my Facebook business page, as well as Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. And this is so important and crucial in today's market, because over 80% of the buyers are starting their searches online before they even reach out to a realtor. Okay, so it's really important that we have a good social media advertising campaign as part of our overall marketing plan. We also advertise on Castanet, Kijiji, Point2 Homes, Ovlix, and even the World Properties. And we also advertise our listings on our competitors' websites like Royal LePage, Century 21, Coldwell Banker, and so on. And if you flip to the back here of the presentation book, there's a package there that you can pull out and look at that gives you a little bit more in-depth information about how these various forms of social media advertising work. Okay? Very good. So any questions about any of this? Okay, very good, very good. So next I want to talk about the services we provide. And as you can see here, and if you just flip over to the next page in your book there, you'll see a list of the services that we provide. And we provide all the same services that all the other brokerages do. Okay, and that includes market analysis, advice on market conditions, skillful pricing and negotiation strategies, good photography, as well as title search, and verifying all the information about the property taxes and any other relevant documents, scheduling and managing all the showings, and providing you with detailed feedback of those showings, and assisting in the removal of conditions. Once we have an accepted offer, that's where it's also my job to keep on top of all the parties that are involved. So you have the other realtor, you have appraiser, the lender, home inspector, and so on. And that's a big part of my job, is to keep on top of that whole process and make sure that everything's running smoothly. So everything from the initial consultation to closing and helping you find your next property and simplifying the moving process, as well as recommending any kind of service professionals that you might need, whether it's a lawyer or a notary or a moving company. We do it all, okay? So, you have any questions about that, or anything any points you'd like me to clarify? Okay, very good, very good. Okay, so moving right along here now. Staging and photography. I think this is one area where we really stand out from our competitors. And here you have an example of the same home that was listed by one of our competitors, and then it was listed by a 2% agent. And I think you can see the quality is apparent right away. In our competitors' shot there, yeah, that's actually the same room, believe it or not. You can see that the camera angle is canted, so it makes the space look a little bit distorted, and you can see shadows everywhere. You can't see clearly, you can't see any detail outside the windows, and you can see just the difference in quality with one of our 2% listings. The same room, and you can see right away, first of all, the wide angle lens takes in the full space of the room and does it justice. The light levels are nice and bright. You can see everything clearly. The camera angle is nice and square on, and the composition is balanced. And you can see all sorts of detail in the depth of field and in the background outside the windows. And so this is such a crucial aspect of marketing homes nowadays. And again, it ties into what we discussed before about the importance of internet marketing, and the fact that, and you've probably experienced this yourself in poring over listings online, that when you're looking at a lot of listings, it's so important to have good photography, because those are the kinds of listings that really stand out. And in today's competitive market, you've really got to make your listings stand out and have really good eye-catching pictures. So that's something that we place a great deal of emphasis on. Okay. So any questions about that? Or okay, very good, very good. In your case, the home that you have is so it's relatively new, and you've maintained it so well that I wouldn't recommend staging. So that doesn't really apply here. So just moving right along. Now this is the part that everyone likes to hear about. This is our commission savings chart, and this illustrates the commission savings, the money that you'll have back in your pocket, and just how we allow our clients to keep more of their investment. Okay. So for example, in this column here you have the selling price, and in this column next to it you have the commission that would be payable based on a 7 and 3 structure. That's 7% on the first 100,000, and then 3 or 3.5 on the balance. And then next to it you have a 2% realty commission, and then in this column your savings. So for example, on a $300,000 home with a 7 and 3 commission, you'd be paying $13,000 in realtor commissions. That's a lot of money, right? As opposed to only $6,000 with 2% realty. Okay, and that $6,000 is then divided, and half is given to the listing realtor and the other half to the buyer's realtor. Okay, so your potential savings are $7,000 in that case. And I'm sure you like the idea of saving $7,000 or more. In your case, it would be a little bit higher because you're more in this price range here, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But that is definitely good news for our sellers. Okay, so was there anything else that I needed to clarify about this, or any other questions you have about that? Okay. No? Okay. So now on this page here we have our statistics, and I have another, you'll see on the next page there, you'll see that I've also provided a graph which actually has a more comprehensive breakdown of our competitors and the stats that we have in comparison. So up top here you have average days on market. So, and by the way, all of these statistics are compiled by our real estate board. Okay, they're not just statistics that we come up with on our own. Okay, so it's all based on the data provided by OMREB, which stands for Okanagan Mainline Real Estate Board, who govern real estate in this area. So our competitors their average days on market number is 84 days to our 53 days on market. Okay, and well, there are many reasons for it. One of the reasons, I think, has to do with the fact that, as it was illustrated in the commission savings chart, people are paying these very large commissions. And so typically what happens is that they are inflating the prices of their properties. So they're taking the market value of the home, and then they're adding the commission on top of it. And as we're going to explore a little bit later here in talking about the pitfalls of overpricing, overpriced homes tend to linger on the market longer. And so that's one reason. Another reason is that when people are not so tapped out on commission, they have a bit more money to do things like refurbish the landscaping, have the house professionally cleaned, small things that can make a big difference when it comes to attracting a buyer to your listing over one of our competitors. Okay, and then another reason that this could also be is that among the many selling strategies that we have, one of them is that we very often encourage our clients to actually price their properties a little bit below market value in the hopes of generating multiple offers. So you price it a little bit below market value, and that in the long run it drives the price up because you attract a lot of attention and you get multiple offers. And I think that could also be, and then of course you also generate a lot of excitement and very quickly, and that also results in a quicker sale too. So that could also be one of the factors, but primarily I think that it has to do with the commission structure. Okay, and I think that this also illustrates the point that we are selling our listings, and we're not only selling them, but we're selling them faster, and we're actually getting our clients more money. So down here, these figures show our competitors' average percentage of list price that they're getting for their clients at 97.3 to our 98.9. Okay, so we're getting more money. Now, we're selling our listings faster for our clients, and we're also getting them more money. Okay, and I just want to flip over here just quickly, and on the back there you'll be able to see a second graph actually that I've provided there. Okay, and that gives you a more detailed breakdown of the average days of market and the listing offices. So we're right at the top of the line. We're leading the pack and beating them all by a mile. Century 21, Remax, Sutton Group, Royal LePage, McDonald Realty, and so on. Okay, now this is very important too, because we were talking before on the phone and you expressed some concern that your listing may not get the same amount of exposure in listing with us, and that perhaps that the other realtors may be reluctant to show the property. And so I want you to rest assured that this is not the case at all. Firstly, over 90% of the buyers start their searches online. And of course, as you're well aware, the entire MLS system is available and open to the public. It used to be that the MLS system was kept in-house by the real estate industry. But since it's been made public, it's no longer possible for the realtors to control the information in that way. And secondly, all the buyers that are working with an agent are put on what's called an auto email. Now, which is something you might be familiar with. Right, and it's something where the realtor takes the criteria of his buyer and he inputs it into the system, so that any new listing that comes up that fits that criteria will be sent directly to the buyer. And it's not possible for the realtors to adjust the settings and to exclude listings based on either the company or the commission payable. So, and then lastly, we sold over 600 properties in the Okanagan last year. Yeah. So all of these factors, coupled with the proof in the statistics, make it clear that you can list with us in confidence knowing that your property won't be in any way disadvantaged because of the commission. Does that put your mind at ease on this question? Okay, very good. So the last slide I want to show is from Profit Magazine, and it shows the 448% cumulative growth of our company since 2012. And why this is important for you, it kind of ties in with what we were just talking about before. And it illustrates the point well that we are a proven business model and a company that is actually one of the fastest growing in Canada right now. Okay? Very good. Okay, so in this section I want to talk about pricing and market conditions and the steps that need to be taken to prepare a property for sale. Okay? Now, I don't want to bore you with too many charts and graphs, but if you turn over the next page there, you'll see a couple of charts that I think are worth looking at. Now, the first one here highlights the importance of pricing correctly at market value. And on the top here, you'll see the asking price and the percentage of buyers. And this line here in the middle represents market value. It represents pricing at market value. Now, you'll see right here that priced at market value, that a property will typically attract 60% of active buyers. And again, these are all taken from our real estate board statistics. Now look at what happens here when you go just as little as 10% over market value. The percentage of buyers drops by 50%, from 60% to 30%. That's quite a drop, isn't it? Yeah. And then if you go just a little bit more, just half of that, to up to 15%, it drops even more than 50%, from 30 to 10%, right? So this illustrates the importance of pricing correctly, okay? And this also ties in with what we talked before about pricing a little bit below market value. And as it happens, I think you do have a property that could be a good one for that particular selling strategy, and we'll talk more about that later. But as you can see here, going in the opposite direction, pricing just as little as 10% below market value attracts 75% of the buyers. Okay, so very important to keep in mind when pricing a property. Okay, this next one here highlights the importance of pricing correctly, and it ties in with, it illustrates the level of excitement that a new listing has, especially in a seller's market like the one we have right now, where you have a lot of buyers and they're all anxiously looking for a property, and suddenly a new listing comes on, especially if it has a really nice presentation, and that it generates a huge amount of excitement and buyer traffic towards your listing, and which is very important. And as you can see, the graph here illustrates that huge level of excitement in the first couple of weeks, and then after the first 3 weeks it starts to go down, and after 4 weeks it goes down more, and then after 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks it just keeps going down, and then finally it just peters off completely. So again, it demonstrates the importance of pricing correctly. And when a property is first listed, the interest is very high, but then that starts to wane as time goes by. Okay? Any questions or comments about this particular graph? Okay, very good. Like I said, I don't want to bore you with too many of these, but I think these are worth looking at. Now this next one here highlights the importance of pricing correctly too at market value, and here you can see on this side, you can see that in less than 4 weeks, sellers are typically getting around just a little under market value at about up to 1.9%. At 4 to 12 weeks, it dips down to minus 3.6%. And then after 13 to 24 weeks, it goes down to less than 5.6%, and then more than 24 weeks, and it's down to minus 8.9%. Okay? So this illustrates the point that it's so important to put your best foot forward first, right out of the gate, and establish a good, fair market value asking price. And it also, I think it illustrates the point very well that you're actually losing money the longer the property stays on the market. And this often happens where people will sometimes price a property and think that they can just lower the price later, but the strategy can backfire badly, because by the time they lower the price, they've missed out on that initial wave of excitement. And then, just like it shows here in the graph here, the longer a property sits on the market, I mean, what's your initial reaction when you see a property that's been on the market for 100 days, for example? What's the first thing that pops into your mind? Yeah, exactly. What's wrong with it? Okay, and then the other factor too that starts to set in around this time is frustration on the seller's part, and so they become more likely, especially if they really need to sell within a certain time frame, they become more likely to let it go for a lower price just out of exhaustion and frustration with having it on the market for that long. Okay, so very important thing to price the property correctly, and as I said, put your best foot forward. Any questions or comments about that? Okay, moving right along here. And then the last one I want to show you shows you the sources of buyers. And this is particularly important for sellers, because you want to know where your buyers are coming from, right? As you can see here, the largest percentage is coming from the internet at 51%, and the second largest number at 34% are coming from real estate agents. So those are obviously two of the most important sources for buyers that we really need to look out for. And again, that ties in with our marketing plan that we're going to tailor for you specifically. 8% for yard and open house signs, and so we're going to cover that as well and make sure we get some signs out there for you. And 4% from friends, relatives, or neighbors. And this is something that is kind of also unique about my business, is that whenever I get a new listing, I do what's called circle prospecting. So I start calling all the people within, say a 2 to 3 mile radius of that home. Because you'd be surprised at how many times a home is purchased by a friend or a relative or a neighbor that wants to move to that neighborhood to be closer. So, and all this illustrates the point too that we want to make sure that we have all the bases covered, and that even if it's a smaller percentage of buyers coming from that source, we want to make sure that we've got it covered so that we we don't risk missing out on a buyer anywhere. And that includes home builder or their agent, and then 1% from directly from sellers, or they knew the seller. And that's another thing too that I'd ask you to do is really rack your brain and try and think of anyone that you might know that might want to purchase your home. You'd be surprised at how often that actually happens. And then finally 1% on print advertising. And on that note, I'll just flip over. I actually have some in the back there, but I can also show you a couple here. Here's an example of a newspaper ad that I did recently for some of my listings. So really nice, eye-catching newspaper ads like that. And again, even if it's only for 1% of the buyers, it's still important that we as I said, that we have all the bases covered. Okay? Any questions or comments about that? Okay, excellent. And then this here, I won't spend too much time on it because it covers some of the things we've already talked about. This just deals with the benefits of using a professional realtor, and so it talks about pricing and marketing, which we've already talked about quite extensively, as well as security. By using the realtor, you'll be assured that all your showings are pre-screened and supervised. Negotiation, also very important. When most people are buying a property, they like dealing with a middle person that's not emotionally attached to the property. And this is one of the reasons why selling a home for sale by owner is still largely ineffectual, because a lot of people just don't feel comfortable approaching the seller directly. And so negotiating on your behalf is one of the most important things that I do. And then finally, monitoring and renegotiating and closing the deal. And that ties in, we've already kind of gone over that, and what I do to make sure that all parties involved are on track, okay? And then lastly, my guarantee to you. This is the page that deals with the guarantee that I give to all my clients. And these are essentially accountability mechanisms that are put in place to make sure that you're totally happy with my services. And because I'm so committed to meeting your needs and getting your property sold, it's really important for me to provide you with a guarantee that I'm going to be committed to developing a property marketing plan that's specifically tailored for your home and your situation. And that if at any point I don't act in accordance with that, you may advise me that you're not happy with my services, and at which point I will revise the plan. And then if you're still not satisfied, or if you're not happy with my services, then of course you can cancel the listing agreement. And on this note, I'm so confident that the services that I provide will be satisfactory that I'm even willing to include an actual listing cancellation form. Any questions or comments about that? Okay, excellent. Another guarantee that I provide is for regular follow-up and updates. And this is an accountability measure so that you can hold me to account for the services that I'm going to provide for you. And that consists of updates at whatever frequency you desire, whether that's once a day or once a week or once every couple of weeks. It's up to you, and I will act accordingly. Any questions about the guarantees and anything related to that? Okay, very good. Yeah, okay. Okay, so now that we've talked about pricing in a more general way, I'd like to talk more specifically about pricing your home. And so what I've done is I've picked out 3 really good close comparables to your property, and I've provided you with a hard copy here that you can follow along with. And I'm also going to have them up on the screen. So on this side you can see the specs for your home, and then on this side you can see those for the comparable properties. So I just want you to be satisfied that we're comparing proper apples to apples here, and that these really are actually similar to your home. Okay, so the first one here is a townhome, just like yours, built in 2006. So it's just 2 years newer than your construction. How many bedrooms here? 2. Okay, and how many full baths? 4-piece ensuite, so 2 baths total. And what's the square footage? 1,100. Yeah. 1 uncovered parking and 1 covered. Additional parking with the RV. So pretty similar so far. Yeah. Okay. So rentals allowed with restrictions. Fireplace is electric, has a wooden frame as well as a concrete foundation like yours. Hardy board siding also like yours. Is on municipal water, and the heating system is electric, same as yours. So electric baseboards, electricity, asphalt fiberglass shingles on the roof, also like yours. Similar dimensions to the rooms, as you can see, with some small variation. The title is freehold, like yours as well, and the same zoning, the CD5 zoning. The taxes are a little bit lower than yours, but fairly close also. Things included in the strata fee include contingency reserve, insurance, snow removal, trash removal, barbecues allowed, and it also has a private entry like yours and a secure gate. So, would you say that this is a fairly similar property to yours? I mean, I think it's fairly obvious that it's a very close comparable. So now we're going to look at the price. Okay. So you can see there its list price was $219, and it's sold at full list price within 25 days. So not bad, but it's priced right. So you can expect it to move quickly. Okay, so that's the first one. If you'll just flip over to the next page, we can look at the second one together. So the same thing. We have another townhome of similar dimensions. So what's the square footage there? It's 1,120. How many bedrooms? 2 bedrooms. How many baths? 4-piece ensuite, so 2 bathrooms in total. This one has a lake view, which is one thing that it has that yours doesn't. And it could be an important selling feature depending on the buyer, but not too much of a differential as far as value goes. So same thing with rentals with restrictions, electric fireplace, wooden frame, concrete foundation, hardy board siding, municipal water, carpeting wall to wall, and some ceramic tile. Has smoke detectors, and this one has an enclosed balcony and a hot tub, so those are two other features, and it also has air conditioning, which your unit does not have. So those are some small features that do add a bit more value. And as you can see, very similar dimensions once again in terms of the rooms, freehold title, the same zoning. And taxes are quite a bit higher in this case at $2,016. So I don't know if it's the sort of property that may need to be reassessed because maybe they're paying too many taxes. It's hard to say. But you got a little bit more of taxable value there too, so that could also be it as well. Now, as you can see, the list price, or those items of value there, are reflected in the higher list to sold price in this example. So this one was listed at $234 and it sold in 12 days at $224. So again, a fairly quick sale. Anything in this price range that is in good condition, and as long as it's priced right, will usually sell pretty quickly. Okay, so are you satisfied that this is also a proper comparable? Okay, very good, very good. And so last but not least, you can just flip over here and look at the last one that I picked out. Now this one, again, very similar dimensions. So it's the same year of construction, so no difference there as yours. Again, 2 bedrooms, 2 full baths. Although what's the square footage on that one? 1,209, so a little bit bigger, but not enough to really add that much more value, but perhaps a little. Again, it also has a lake view, whereas yours doesn't. The bones of the building are very similar to yours in terms of the framing. Again, wood frame, concrete foundation. This one actually has just ordinary wood siding, which makes it, slightly less, which is a slightly less valuable exterior finish than the hardy board siding. But it's on municipal water. Now this one here also has an enclosed balcony. The primary source of heating and cooling is electricity. Like yours, it also doesn't have the air conditioning. Asphalt fiberglass shingles for the roof. Again, similar property dimensions to the rooms. And freehold title. Again, the same zoning. This one is also a bit more than yours in terms of the property taxes, but a little bit lower than the last one we looked at $1,523, and that is from the assessment from the last tax year. So it could be a little more. Hard to say, but strata fees at $250 are also very, very close to yours. So again, I think you'd have to agree that this is also a fairly close comparable. So now we'll look at the price. So this one was listed at $269 initially, and then it was dropped to $249, and then it finally sold for $224 after how many days? 123 days. So this is a good close comparable that well illustrates the point that if you overprice a property, you end up waiting longer and you end up getting either about the same amount of money at market value or sometimes even less. So I want to spare you having to go through this. That's why I'm showing you this, and I think that's where I can help you to price the property competitively and at fair market value so that we can get it sold and get you moving on to the next chapter in your life. Okay? Very good. So now that we've reviewed the selling strategies, the marketing plans. We've talked about market conditions and pricing. I've talked about the guarantees I'm going to offer you. Is there anything else that you have any questions about that you'd like me to clarify? Okay, very good. Well, why don't we get started with the paperwork, and then we can discuss the arrangements for where we're going to set up the lockbox and the sign and so forth. Okay, so let's get started. So at this point, depending on the situation, I may choose to use any one of several different closes. So I might use a Ben Franklin style close where I'll weigh the pros and cons and then lead into the close from there. Or I might decide to just use a basic assumptive close like the one that I did just there. And it all depends on the situation. So, of course, I'm always open to any new suggestions about closes that can be used, but that's typically how I play it by ear, depending on the situation and depending on what kind of response I'm getting from the client. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed it.